For some background, we were all mid-20s girls from the Midwest. The first of my friends was getting married, so naturally, a bunch of us went to Las Vegas for a bachelorette party. Having never been to Vegas before, we were having a blast. This story begins on our last night out. We were at this pool party this day, and one of the girls, Brittany, got completely plastered, so she had to be taken home and put to bed. So we didn't make it out that night. We actually had 2 rooms on 2 different floors. One was on like the 16th floor and the other was on the 6th. She stayed in the room on the 6th floor. There was a DJ playing a show in our hotel that night, and it was decided that we will go there for convenience. The maid of honor was one of those people that knew everyone one way or another, and an old friend was a promoter for this club. He was able to not only get us in for free, but to get a table with free bottle service. We thought this was the most amazing thing ever and took huge advantage of the free drinks. As many of you know, Vegas is very expensive. One of the girls, Danielle, and I go to the bathroom, and by the time we make it back to the table, our party has disappeared. Bouncer dropped us like a hot potato and told us, "This isn't your table anymore, someone bought it." We were pretty bummed because not only did we have to go to the general peasant area, but now we were all split up. Everyone was drunk and not really responding to text, and it was too loud to call. Hoping that the rest of the girls were together, me and Danielle stayed and enjoyed the concert until around 2 a.m. before walking back to our rooms. She was staying in the 6th floor, and I was on the 16th. We split up on the elevator to go to our separate rooms, but mine was already occupied by 4 of the girls, all passed out. I called Danielle and told her I was coming down, but she warned me that Megan was in the room crying hysterically and she's not sure what happened. As I get down to that room, we learned the truth. Still one of the scariest things to ever happen to someone I know. As told by Megan, I was enjoying the concert until I got split up from everyone. I decided to walk back to the room as I was very tired. I got on the elevator with several people and I was the only one that got off of my floor, or so I thought. I walked to the end of the hallway and as I put my key card to the door, a man comes sprinting down the hall and tackles me into the room. The door shuts behind us. He climbed on top of me and punched me in the face several times before trying to knock me out. All of a sudden, Brittany, who was asleep in the room, wakes up out of nowhere and yells, "What the fuck?" She gets up and starts kicking the man. He thought Megan was alone, so naturally he freaked out and ran out the room. Her blood was all over the wall when I got to the room. Hotel security came and said something that gave me the chills. We were able to watch him on our cameras follow you the whole way through the casino and onto the elevator. He got out pretending to go the opposite direction just until you opened the room door. Then he charged. The whole time you were walking, he was just behind you, watching you like a hawk. It definitely seemed like he knew what he was doing. Thank God for my other friend not making it out that night, because Megan truly could have been alone and trapped in the hotel room with that guy. Also, the police never did find him. Hi Reddit. I really didn't want to give you guys the usual speech of how I'm a long-time lurker but first-time poster, but unfortunately, it's the truth. I originally posted this a couple of days ago on a throwaway account because they don't let you use accounts you don't have any activity on anymore because it could be a spam. So, I'm posting this on a friend's old account because I joined Reddit like a month ago and don't want to post on my normal account as I have told so many people this story. Anyway, enjoy the story. Sorry for the grammar errors or mistakes. A bit of backstory. My mom was a single mom and I was her only child. Me and her were super close all of my life and we used to live in a pretty dingy apartment in the middle of nowhere. At the time, she was a nurse at a nearby hospital and would work night shifts, so anytime there wasn't a babysitter, she would just let me stay with my aunt and cousin, Lily. She was never cool with leaving me in the apartment alone. Eventually, my mom started dating Todd, and eventually, they got married. So I went from living in this pretty horrible part of town in this old rundown apartment to this gorgeous suburban house with a pool and a huge backyard and a safe community where everybody knew everybody. I also gained 2 stepsisters near my age. One was 13, the other was 17. I have to say, I was living a life. However, I really wanted to stay in the school I was already in, as that was where all my friends were, and I felt really happy. So my mom decided it was best that I stay there. Todd was a music teacher in a different high school nearby. His daughters went there too. This story takes place during the start of summer in 2010. I was 15 and I just got in my summer vacation. At this point, my mom had worked her way up to working daytime hours, which were usually more favorable. My school got summer vacation a week or two before Todd in the girls' school. Not sure why, but this meant I usually had the house to myself. The only thing was my mom still wasn't cool with me being alone, even though the neighborhood was a lot safer and nothing went unnoticed. You never know what things might happen. That day, I invited my cousin, Lily, over for a pool party. She was a year older, but went to my high school, so we were both on vacation. The day went normal. Lily was dropped off by my aunt in the morning before Mom and Todd went to work, and we lay under the sun for most of the day. Eventually, we got kind of sick of being in the heat, so we retreated inside. The way the house is laid out is the usual suburban home layout, except Todd had a built-in sunroom with large windows on the side of the house. The sunroom had a glass door to the pool, and on the opposite wall, a glass door to the patio to the side of my house. Shrubbery and a large bush covered the sunroom from being seen in the front door. However, you could clearly see who was at the front door if you were inside the sunroom. If you guys want a diagram, I will draw one. It probably sounds super confusing. Lily and I sat in the sunroom for a while, talking, when a car pulls up into the driveway. I sit up to see who's in the front seat, but the sun is glaring off the window of the car. Perfect. Anxiety sets in from my mom's continuous nagging about stranger danger, and I immediately grab my phone. Lily tells me to calm down, and that's just probably someone on the phone who pulled in because they didn't see anyone was home. I begin to calm down. Then the man opens the door of the car, scans the front yard, and knocks on the front door. He was late 40s, early 50s, golden hair with a large bald patch in the middle, and a beard. It doesn't sound creepy, but something about his demeanor told me that he wasn't here for a good reason. My heart was pounding. Lily gets up to answer it when I stop her and tell her it's probably not a good idea. As soon as I say that, he walks away, but not towards his car, the opposite direction. I calm down as I think he is walking to my neighbor's, but then I realize he is coming in the side gate and most certainly see me and Lily through the glass windows, and before I even have the chance to process this thought, he comes out of the corner. His eyes meets mine. He gives me this menacing smile, speed walks towards us and begins to knock on the glass door. I don't even know how, but adrenaline caused me to jump up from my sofa and open the door. Fine day today, isn't it? He says immediately. I instantly feel the creepy vibes from this guy as he looks me up and down in my swimsuit. Yeah, who are you? I reply. Then he says, were you girlies out swimming in the pool? I immediately shoot a worried look back at Lily, and she gives me the same one back. We both realize we have a creeper on our hands. Were you? He repeats. Can I get a reason why you're here? I say. Then he says, I'm just here to clean your pool. Someone in your house booked me to do it last week. I could tell he was lying. It's like he thought, swimsuit, pool boy. As terrified as I was, I could still figure out he was lying through his teeth. Also, he didn't say who. Surely, he could give me a name. This dialogue of me asking him questions about the booking and him giving very vague responses goes on for a good minute. I know the pool boy. He lives a few houses down. He was like 20, not about 50, and he just did it and left a bill in the mailbox. No knocking, no talking, and definitely no creeping. He takes a step closer. Can I come in? Why would a pool boy want to come into the house? My face goes pale. I see he slowly gets closer, almost as if he was ready to pounce. I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong house. I slam the door, turn the lock, grab my phone, and we run out of my room, with Lily sprinting out too. We hide in my closet, and I hear him shouting at us to let him in. We can hear him trying to open the door on the pool side and on the patio. I call my mom, sobbing, knowing she gets off work in an hour, and tell her what's going on. However, my mom being my mom, the nervous wreck she is, bombed it out of work and got home in 25 minutes. Her work was an hour away. When she got back, she found us curled up in my closet, sobbing. She went to our neighbor's house, and apparently the guy had been around the whole neighborhood trying to gain access to houses. if there was kids, they'd say someone in the household had called asking to clean their pool. If they were adults, he would ask if they had a booking. They'd say no, and he said he got the wrong house. It was so scary. I had never experienced fear like that before. It was reported to the police, but of course, nothing ever came of it. To this day, however, I really don't think he was trying to burgle some houses. That sinister look he gave me never sat right with me. I live in a different state now and only come home for family events. Whenever I'm home, if I'm left in the house alone, I can't bring myself to stay in the sunroom. I feel really unsafe, like someone's watching me. So creepy fake pool boy, let's not meet. P.S. Thanks for scarring me for life. He stalked me across 2 different countries, so this is going to be a pretty long one. Several years ago, I was using a dating app. It was all fun and games. Sometimes I met up with people for hookups, sometimes I didn't. And most of the time, I didn't even reply to those who only sent certain types of pictures unsolicited. One day, this guy shot me a message on there. He was 4 years younger than me, meaning he was 18 at the time and I was 22. I didn't really consider him my type, but at the same time, I also didn't think it would hurt to get to know him. I mean, looks are just looks, and there has been plenty of times where I fell for a guy not for looks, but for the way he acted and his personality. So maybe that could have been the case too. I just came out of a pretty toxic relationship that involves lots of cheating and trust issues and insecurities, so I wasn't really looking for a new relationship, but it did feel good to get positive attention from guys. We started texting back and forth, nothing out of the ordinary, but I realized pretty soon that the part of his personality he let me experience was a lot more than just, I'm horny, let's fuck. And look, no slut shaming, because I wasn't that opposed to it. As I said, I just had a nasty breakup and was looking for some fun. He asked me on a date and I said yes. We exchanged numbers, agreed on a date, time, and place, and then we went back to our normal lives for now. I had a lot going on at the time. It was only a few months until I had moved to a different place, so I already started planning for all that. And not just that, but a friend of mine invited me to come with him on a trip to Amsterdam, which obviously had to be prepared as well, since the trip was scheduled 2 weeks before I was supposed to move. Therefore, it comes to no one's surprise that I kind of forget about the guy until the day we were supposed to meet up. He texted me a few hours earlier if we were still clear. After I scolded myself for forgetting, I told him that we were meeting as planned, even though that would throw my schedule off a little. So I got ready for the date, and I kid you not even an hour before we were supposed to meet, he canceled. I mean, not too big of a deal. It happens that he can't make it. So we schedule another day, which he proceeded to cancel as well. Cancellation after cancellation, week after week, 7 different dates. Each time it allegedly was a sick relative or pet, so clearly, I took that he didn't really want to meet me anymore, which would be fine. I'm not everyone's type either, but he could have at least had the decency not to lead me on then. So I told him off about his shitty behavior and blocked him. Maybe that was a little bit of an overreaction, but I just didn't want to waste my time with a guy that seemingly always found excuses to meet me, when I could focus on either the moving process or the vacation process, or with another guy who has actual interest. But then, he messaged me on the dating app. How dare I block him? He wanted to meet me, but I was just an unappreciative bitch. Obviously, after that I blocked him on the app as well. I thought that I had heard the last of him, so I went on with my days. It was going to be a good summer. I already started forgetting him after a few weeks. And then another account messaged me, fake pictures and all, but it didn't take long for me to figure out it was him. He basically admitted it in the first place. So, another blocked account, another block, day after day. I thought, what was even going on? He didn't want to meet me first, and now he creates new accounts on the daily to contact me. What the hell? So I just had enough and wanted to tell him off again. When he started to apologize for his behavior, that he was in the wrong and that he was still willing to meet me if I was willing to meet him still. Trust me, I really wanted to hook up, but in my mind, if I just met him and be just very bad at sex or something, he'd just never contact me again or something. Stupid, but hey, it was worth a try. so we scheduled a meeting before I was supposed to leave for the trip to Amsterdam, which I stupidly told him about, and since I didn't have a car, he offered to come to my place. Now, I would never ever give a stranger from the internet my address, but back then, I did. I mean, he couldn't possibly be a creep, right? So we met, he came into my house, we sat down on my bed, exchanged basic pleasantries, and then he stopped talking altogether. He didn't even look at me. Just to be safe, I wasn't a catfish. I looked exactly like I did in all my photos, and neither was he. Only when I asked him something, he would reply with very few words, until I asked him directly about if we'd hook up or not. Then he suddenly started kissing, and, well, I don't have to go into detail. So, when he finished, he sat next to me staring at the wall, not saying a word. At that point, I was pretty annoyed. I mean, I get being shy and all, but if it's that intense, how would you muster the courage to go out on a hookup? Anyways, after I went to the bathroom to freshen up, I told him my roommates would be back soon, so we jumped up, said goodbye, and just left. I got no other message from him after that. Fast forward to my trip to Amsterdam, my friend, let's call him Joe, had lots of fun roaming through the streets of Amsterdam day and night, relax on a pretty hotel, and do the usual shit tourists do. One day, we were just walking down a very busy road very close to the main train station, when suddenly I hear a car honk loudly next to us. The traffic light was red, so the person wasn't driving. I thought nothing of it and didn't even look until the guy started to call my name. The voice was very familiar, and the voice that belonged to it was still in my memory. It was my hookup guy. When I looked, he smiled widely and called for me to come over, but when he saw Joe, who at this point asked me who that was, his smile faded. I was dumbstruck, so I didn't say anything, but that wasn't necessary. The traffic light just turned green. People started getting pissed that my hookup didn't immediately go. So finally he focused on the road again and drove off. That was a hell of a coincidence, right? That he would be in Amsterdam the same time as me? But why wouldn't he say so when I told him my plans? If he didn't want me to know, why call out to me in the middle of a busy road? I didn't allow my mind to think about him intentionally going there to find me. That was impossible. He wasn't interested in me anyway, right? Back at home, my phone started to blow up. Calls, angry texts, new profiles. Didn't matter what I told him. Didn't matter that I threatened to block him again. He told me that I was a slut for going out with another guy, despite being in a relationship with him. That I was just like everyone else. That he deserved better than me. And then he said he had just been coming to Amsterdam for me, to surprise me. When I tell you I changed my number and deleted the dating app quicker than I possibly could have, I mean I sprinted to my car and drove to the closest shop to get a new number. Not long after, I moved into the new place. I had 2 new roommates that were both in the same college courses I was in. We got along fine, and the house is pretty big. One of my roommates inherited it from her mom. The moving went smoothly. I didn't get another text, and I didn't get any messages on my social media. And he didn't show up to my old place. Eventually, a few months later, I basically forgot again. For more context, the new house was in a village, not a small town, but a village. There were no shops, no nothing. Shopping we'd have to do in the next town that was approximately 4 miles away. My room was on the ground floor. The window of that room was right next to the entrance door when you were looking at the house from the outside. And right beside my room outside was the carport. The ground was covered in gravel, and once anybody moved, the light of the carport would turn on. It was a pretty hot summer, so I sometimes slept with my window open. I wasn't that afraid because, once again, it was a very small village, and barely anybody would drive through here. So one night, I was just sleeping, even had my back turned towards the window, and then I started to hear someone walking on the gravel towards my window. I immediately turned around, and, of course, I saw a guy walking past my window, though he didn't look inside. He walked to the mailbox and seemed to throw something inside, then he left again. I was stunned for a few seconds, but at least it wasn't a murderer, I thought. So as soon as I could move, I closed the window and kept it closed each night from that point onward. This actually happened a few nights, that someone would walk to our mailbox in the middle of the night, but nothing was ever inside, at least that I knew of. It was weird, but maybe one of my roommates were receiving something personal that they just didn't want to share. Cut to a few nights later, I was minding my own business when I suddenly heard some gravel again. My roommates had just gone to bed half an hour ago, and I didn't hear anyone leave, so I thought it was just the mailbox guy. But this time, he didn't walk to the mailbox. He just walked to the carport. I know that because the light turned on. Immediately, I texted my roommates about the guy on our carport. One of my roommates, Sarah, who had her room across the hallway from mine, well, Mary, the other roommate, had hers upstairs, texted back into our group chat we had made. She told me that we should meet with weapons at the bottom of the stairs to investigate. I grabbed a scissor I had in my room and went to our meeting point. Turns out my weapons were the most useful since Mary came downstairs with a ukulele and Sarah thought an empty plastic bottle could be used as a weapon. After laughing at the absurdity of our weapons, we started getting back in serious mode, going to the side door that led to the carport. Sarah looked through the window of the said door, but didn't see anyone. The light was turned off too. Just in that moment, we heard someone tampering with our mailbox again. Not gonna lie, I probably pissed my pants a little bit. Immediately, we ran to the front door, opened it, and looked outside. But there was no one, at least not that we could see. After a look in the mailbox, which was empty of course, we went back inside. Not even 2 minutes later, I got a text from an unknown number saying how cute I looked in my nightgown, that no makeup even made me look prettier. He hoped that I'd come out alone so we could have some more fun together like before I moved, but he was sad to find out 2 other people were with me. Needless to say that none of us slept that night. The police was called immediately and did a sweep, but no one was found on the property. He didn't exactly say it, but I know it was that guy. So I filed a report the next day. Nothing really happened with it, but since nothing else happened like that, I thought that he got the message when we called the police. Sometimes I still get messages from an unknown number, but they're pretty harmless and don't really bother any further when I ignore them. But the fear in the back of my mind that one day he could come back stays, of course. In the meantime, I took up self-defense classes, so dear stalker, we better never meet again. This is my first post here. This experience still gives me chills to this day. I actually have a few other camp encounters that I can share if anyone is interested, mainly occurring along the AT with campers. North GA is a mighty interesting place. A few years ago, I worked at a Jewish summer camp in North Georgia. As many of you might know, Georgia is a fairly conservative state as well as being predominantly Christian. There are small Jewish communities and a few summer camps. I'd say this camp is more culturally Jewish than it was religious. There were no religious requirements nor religion-specific focus. Rather, it was a place for kids who were often in the minority to come to a camp that allowed them to meet some other kids like them. Staff came from all over. We had many Australians, lots of Brits, and a few Israels, and people from various areas of the USA. Each night at around 10, most of the staff were able to go out of town for a couple of hours. Enough staff remained behind to watch over the cabins we rotated. This particular night, a group of about 5 of us decided to go to a local bar and grab a few beers. It had been a hot day and was a humid night, so we decided to sit outside on a patio. For some backstory on the town, generally, we were extremely well received by the community, despite differences. We brought in lots of revenue for the town during the summer. We bought supplies at a local Walmart and often took the campers on tubing trips or occasionally out to dinner after a long hike on the Appalachian Trail. It was midsummer, so we'd been out to all the bars in the area many times already that season. The 5 of us sat down around a table, drinking and discussing the events of the day, as fellow employees would after work. About 30 minutes in, a white man in his 20s came up to our table. I distinctly remember a jagged scar on his cheek, but didn't think much of it at the time. He introduced himself, then told us that he was having a party that night at his place. Anyone can come, he said. Black, white, gay, straight. I found it odd that he'd open his speech with that disclaimer. Of course, the party should be open to everyone. Why did he feel the need to specify? But we all had a few beers and were feeling pretty loose. We talked for a bit longer, and nothing really seemed off. We told him we were working at a camp in the area and couldn't stay out, so we'd probably be heading back soon. An hour later, our group went back to the parking lot. to get into the car. As we approached it, we saw the same guy come out of the shadows. He had a buddy with him with a shaved head. His expression was incredibly hateful. His eyes had changed. He pounded his fist into his hands and then took off his shirt to reveal a poorly inked SS tattoo. My stomach dropped. One of the bigger guys in my group, Kevin, immediately reacted by pulling a knife out of his back pocket. At summer camp, most of us carried knives. We spent a lot of time building campfires, etc. And Kevin asked what they wanted. The original guy started shouting some anti-Semitic remarks and told us he was going to, quote, beat us down. Kevin started walking toward the two guys, but we pulled him back. He told us his buddies were on the way. Sure enough, more guys started walking into the parking lot. It's all kind of a blur here. I remember jumping onto one of the cars, pulling Kevin with us. It felt like we were surrounded, though there were probably only 7 or 8 of them. Rocks were thrown at the car. We sped off. My heart was beating like crazy. We never went back to that bar. On the bright side, when we told the story to the competing bar in town, the bartender lined up 6 shots, cheered us, and said we'd always be welcome in his bar and that town. We had no more problems in that town itself, but when I took some campers on a 2-day hike in the Appalachian Trail, it was a whole nother story. That's for another time.